hit that like button, and let's dive into our first question and topic. And first up today, we've got Nick, who has actually worked as a teacher in Dallas, asking a question I think a lot of parents are genuinely wrestling with right now. For the past 10 years, the education system doesn't seem what it used to be back in the day. It kind of scares me to see the way it's been dissolved as far as what we're allowed to teach kids and what we're allowed to allow them to learn. And it's kind of surprising to me as a parent. Would you allow your kids to go to the public school system that they have nowadays? So this hits close to home for me. My wife's even running for the school board here because we really care about the public school system. But before I give you my answer, let's actually look at the state of public education in America, because the data is actually pretty sobering. And we'll start with the most straightforward measure. Are kids actually learning? To answer that question, we need to take a look at results from National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is a series of standardized tests widely known as the nation's report card. When you look at the most recent data from 2024, it shows the 12th grade reading and math scores, they've hit record lows. Just 35% of high school seniors were proficient in reading. 32% scored below the basic level, and math was even worse. Only 22% of seniors were proficient, and nearly half scored below basic. So the gap between the highest and lowest performing 8th graders, it's the widest it's ever been, and experts largely point to the pandemic as the primary cause. But it's also not the only one. Ironic absenteeism, more screen time, shorter attention spans, and a decline in kids' reading. Longer form content are all contributing factors. And here's the thing that makes it worse. The Trump administration has cut roughly a dozen national and state student assessments through 2032. So on top of scores dropping, we're also going to have less visibility into how much they're dropping. And the people inside of the system, they are not optimistic. A Pew Research Center report from 2024 found that 82% of teachers said that the overall state of public K-12 education, it has gotten worse in the past 5 years. More than half said that they wouldn't advise a young person to even enter the profession. Yet a 2025 Gallup poll finding that 73% of Americans said they were very or somewhat dissatisfied with the quality of the U.S. public education system. Overall, the percentage of adults who are still satisfied is the lowest it's ever been since Gallup started asking the question back in 2001. Also, about half of all U.S. adults say public K-12 is going in the wrong direction. And then, there's the curriculum debate, and that's been its own firestorm. I mean, from 2021 to 2024, nearly 1/3 of states have banned K-12 school curricula that offer critical perspectives on America's racial history. During that same time period, legislatures in at least 40 states introduced more than 200 pieces of legislation to restrict, with teachers can discuss and actually punish them for teaching what some call divisive topics. And supporters argue this protects kids from political indoctrination, but critics argue it does the opposite. That limiting complex, honest conversations about history, it leaves students with a simplified and distorted picture of the world. So with all of that context, what are families actually doing? Well, a lot of them. They're leaving private school enrollment. It has surged post-pandemic, with roughly 40% of private schools reporting enrollment increases in the 2023-2024 school year. A big driver of that has been the expansion of school choice programs, government-funded vouchers that let families use taxpayer dollars to pay for private school. Right before the pandemic, just over 500,000 students were using those programs. And now, that's above 1.3 million. You're seeing things like an HOA survey, finding that 50% of parents would send their kids to private school or homeschool if given the option. Now with that, private schools do consistently outperform public schools in standardized tests and college placement. But researchers are very quick to add here, there's important context. When you control for socioeconomic status, that achievement gap shrinks dramatically. The 2018 analysis found that a student's success is less about the type of school they attend, and more about the attributes of their family, parental education levels, income, access to tutors, having a quiet space to study at home, things like that. And so essentially, private schools often look better on paper, partly because they serve wealthier students who are likely going to do well regardless. That said, that the post-pandemic achievement gap between public and private schools, they've just grown, and lower-income communities are bearing the brunt of all of it. And then, it can get complicated. Critics of the school choice movement, they argue that pulling students and the funding tied to them out of the public schools, it's just accelerating a debt spiral for those institutions. So you see things like, between 2019 and 2023, enrollment declined by 20% or more. At nearly 1 in 12 public schools, around 1,000 public schools close every year. And also, a Stanford analysis found that majority black public schools are far more likely to be among those closers. And the argument being you drain public schools of students and money, that the quality then drops, more people leave. And the quality drops further, and eventually the school just shuts down. And this is happening disproportionately in communities that already have the fewest options. And so this question of whether you send your kid to public school ends up not just being a personal one, it becomes a deeply political one with real downstream consequences for communities that don't have the option to choose. And so for us personally, we've decided to send our kids to public school. We have the money to go private. We've done it in the past. But this is what feels right to us right now. Part of that. It's also connected to my belief that the best school for you, especially K-12, is the one that's closest to the schools. The infrastructure, the staff, all of that. It matters. But also something that data has shown is that kids are really able to thrive when they're able to maximize the time they have out of school. And so part of that is connected to how much time are you losing on the drive or the bus into school and back, or the kids that your kids are around at school, also close by. Is there sort of a community thing? A lot of that it's connected to, we're stronger and better together. There's also a whole thing I could talk about with kids being lonelier than ever, and so it's important, that we're maximizing and doing things that help socialize and then benefit kids outside of school. So, again, while I understand, what you do with your kids, it is a very personal issue. This is how I currently look at it. And I want to try and help build up something rather than strip something down and run away. And then there's more we're going to dive into based off of your questions.